I'm gonna let you go first on this one.
Oh, I thought your connection timed out. I was like, what?
No, my brain and my soul kind of stopped on this one, so I'm gonna let you
Oh,
just.
well, I texted you guys, so I think you should know. But I actually really liked the first episode. Now, there were definitely things I didn't like, but as a whole, I was pleasantly happy with everything. Oh, I should say before we go in, there will be mild spoilers here. I mean, I feel like it's no fun talking about this without there being some spoilers. Um, I'm trying to think of what exactly I like very much liked or disliked. I mean, I guess right off the bat, I really liked the enemies. I feel like they did a good job with the elites. I mean, some of the CGI I feel like is a little iffy. Like, did you see the one scene where Chief throws down his gun?
Yeah.
I feel like your audio keeps cutting out.
Oh, can you hear me? Is it okay?
No, you're good. But yeah, like I said, like some
yeah,
of the
I thought-
graphics or the effects are. It definitely looks a little. Oh gosh, bad time to cough. It looks a little cheap, I feel like, in certain parts. And then there's other parts where it looks really good. So I feel like it's a little uneven in terms of the look. I guess one part. I don't know. Let me go back through. So I guess something I really enjoyed from right from the get go with the opening scene is I actually really liked kind of the reverence that some civilians the episodes. The show begins with them kind of focusing on this. Trying to think, what is this force? There are people that have broken away from the.
Or something.
Yeah, they're people that have broken away from the UNSC, and they're like
Yeah, a little rebel
like
insurgent, whatever.
And I actually really liked that kind of viewpoint because normally through the Halo everything's viewed from the eyes of the UNSC, so I feel like it's kind of an interesting viewpoint to look at it from not the Covenant and not the UNSC, from some outsider group, kind of looking at what's going on there. But yeah, I guess from the opening start, I really liked kind of the reverence and also fear that some civilians have of the UNSC and the Demon, as they call Master Chief and the Spartans. So that was really cool. I mean, they do introduce a new character to the Halo lore. Or is she new? I don't know. I'm assuming she's new for the show. What's her name's Quan, I think?
It's hard, and I'll talk more about this in a minute. Like, I am not the biggest Halo lore guy. I have played every Halo game, but I know the lore is pretty in depth. Like, I don't read into all the little pieces even in the game, and they got books and all this other stuff that go on. So she could be a character existing out there somewhere, but I think she's a newer one.
Mm-hmm. I kept wanting to call her Quan Chi the whole time.
That's what I'm gonna call her from now on.
Quan Chi. It's a Mortal Kombat reference. If you guys, sorry. I'm sure most people probably are like, yes, Chaz, we get it. Yeah, there's some like really cool opening things. I really liked that kind of viewpoint. There's this one older gentleman talking to like this one guy who is like has no fear of the Spartans, and like I kind of really like the scene he has where he's like, you fear no man, but a Spartan is like equals 100 men. I just kind of like that reverence and viewpoint of the Master Chief or the Spartans as a whole. And then the movie like goes right into Covenant forces attacking this poor group of people, and like, man, it is super brutal, super gory, and I actually really liked it in parts. Like, it almost reminded me of like scenes from Starship Troopers where like people are being like their legs are getting chopped off, their bodies are like burning. That's actually something I really enjoyed about it early on. Is I feel like the show, to start the first episode, did a really good job making the Covenant weapons super intimidating and scary. Because like, I mean, if you really think about it, they're like, what are they? It's all made of like plasma, I think, right?
Yeah, so it just like melt you.
Yeah, and like there's sometimes when it hits people and like there's just like legs that are just there, just standing.
I was so taken aback by that intro, and I remember I texted you. I had just watched this first 5 minutes. I was like, "What in the world?"
There's literally just legs because the plasma.
Well, to be fair, I mean it's a war show. I mean, you think about anything involving that realistically is gonna be gory, but man, they did not hold back. I was very just like
Mm-hmm.
kind of taken aback, and I think I like it. I don't know. I'm really
I,
kind
f-
of just like
I
in
f-
between.
I feel like things like that. I know it. Some people may not like it. I, I like
It
it
feels like
because
they're going for shock value, and I don't know if I love that. Like it feels like it fits what they're trying to do, but just the way they came across is like, yep, we're willing to go there. And I'm like,
see, I
okay.
don't feel. I feel like I'm going to disagree. I don't think it was for shock value. I feel like, and to a certain extent, things like that, some grotesqueness, some brutality, is necessary to build up the evil or the the villain of a movie or a TV show. Like yeah, you can take it too far, but I feel like for our first episode, it's kind of, or maybe our first season, it's kind of necessary. I mean, you have to have, your covenant has to be scary. They're the big bads. You have to, people have to fear them, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of in between on if that really added that extra, like I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm so middling on this show. If you haven't kind of got that feeling yet, um, like if they really needed to go that direction, if they could have done that same thing without having the really shocking kind of gory element of it. And I know it maybe gore's the wrong word. It's not like bloody bloody. It's just like you feel pretty much just disintegrate and like they lose their legs. I think we got personally like had her head blown off or something. It was
Yeah.
pretty messed up. And I mean, there's some shock value there. Maybe they didn't do it for that initially. Um, but I don't know if it was necessary. I'm not saying I didn't like it. Like I said, I think I do like it because it definitely added some
Oh,
tension there.
you
But
liked it.
I don't know. Maybe it's because my other feelings on the show are kind of pulling me different directions that I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of questioning that. But it was certainly a direction to go that quickly. And I definitely felt Starship's troopery. I'll give them that.
Oh, cool. I'm glad you agree because that's what I kind of pulled away from it. I was like, wow, this reminds me of the bugs to an extent. But yeah, there's some good and positives. I mean, I still feel like my one negative is going to be this Quan girl. I feel like the show is going to focus on her so much, and like it's always been about Chief. Like that's what people want. They want to see Chief, and I feel like she kind of already has. I don't know. I find it hard to believe that like they're gonna have this one character follow Chief around throughout the entire series when like Chief is like constantly being bombarded by plasma. Like, you know what I mean? He's gonna be constantly getting attacked, and it's like, what good is a human with him? You know what I mean? I feel like that's why Cortana in the games was in the story is such a good fit to be with Chief on his journeys because she's like not physical. She can't
She's
be
not
dead.
detriment to him in battle or anything. She's,
Yeah.
a constant companion that you can, communicate with and get
Mm-hmm.
perspective from without being some kind of issue on the battlefield. No, I get that.
Because Chief is like the ultimate weapon, and it's like, how is a human following him around 24/7?
Mhm.
He's going to be constantly protecting her, and I don't know. I feel like that's going to be kind
Yeah,
of.
we'll have to see that play out. I mean, I don't know if I have an issue with her as a new character yet. Honestly, the new characters are the ones I am taking least issue with because to me they're blank slates. I'm willing to kind of see where they take them. My issue are with the characters that are already established. Um,
Oh,
and
freaking!
I don't want.
I hated what they did with Commander Captain Keyes. Oh, he
Yeah,
made him such a. I liked what they did with Miranda Keyes, but like her dad is just like willing to kill people to
I don't know
protect.
how I feel about either of them. I don't. I don't want to go. If you have other points you want to talk about, go on those because I mean I'm worried if I'm going to start going off on a rant
Oh no,
here.
go off. No,
Um,
I'm fine.
I don't know. Like this, just as my general feeling about this show. I mean, there's definitely things I could pick at critique. Like, okay, the CG I thought was as bad as it was good in parts. Like it was kind of split,
I
and I
agree.
think
Hmm.
it felt cheap. And I know this is not a game, or not a game. Sorry, this is not a show that had a low budget, but it felt like, at least in parts, like kind of the cheapy sci-fi channel movie shows. Like,
I agree.
I mean, it was good sometimes, but when it was good, it was at its best. It was like, Battlestar Galactica Sci-Fi
Hmm.
Channel good. So it was never up to, I think, the quality I think it could have and should have been. But my biggest issue. Oh, why I want to say this. It doesn't feel like Halo to me. I feel like it's a sci-fi show wearing a Halo coat of paint, if that makes sense. Like it's got all the Halo characters that I should
It
know, but
definitely
they don't
feels like
feel right.
it feels like an alternate timeline, like Marvel
Yeah,
Elseworld thing.
and I'm trying to come at this like, okay, I'm okay with them making adaptations. Like I don't mind changes necessarily. And I say I'm not a huge enough lore guy on Halo that I would even know all the things they changed. Like when they did certain things in the show, I had to stop and be like, is that how it's supposed to be? And I'd look it up and be like, oh yeah, that is how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were some things that of course weren't, but that wasn't my issue so much. But like Chief didn't feel like Chief to me. Halsey felt off to me. Like they all looked like these characters that I've known in the games, but they weren't
I kind
to
of
me,
liked
if that makes
Halsey.
sense.
I feel like Chief though was
Chief's the biggest one to me that
yes,
I personally
yes.
have an issue with.
I agree.
Halsey, I think, was going a weird direction I didn't love. And, like, yeah, both the keys I think were a little weird, but I don't know. I guess here's my thing. Like, okay, I agree that, things should be adapted to, fit different mediums. Like, a game doesn't necessarily have to be just like a TV show,
Mm-hmm.
vice versa. But I guess here's my argument is why did it have to adapt so much? Like, so if you are making a show that is called Halo, okay, you think about who your target audience is. It's the Halo players, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most people they're going to see Halo and be like, "Oh yeah, that's that game my kid played back in the day." Like they're not going to care about the show one way or the other. The
Mm-hmm.
people that are watching the show are the ones who grew up playing Halo, so they are bringing into this their history of what they played in the games, and they're probably like me in most cases. Like there are definitely those who dig into every little facet and lore feature out there, but most players, I'd probably say at least 70% or more, have played the games. That's their baseline and that's it. So that is the knowledge and the background they're coming into the show. And most of them are going to want to see that in some way, shape, or form reflected in this TV form. And there's nothing about, I think, that has happened in the games that can't be adapted. Like, they've done plenty of, live action Halo stuff already. At Forward Until Dawn, was it Fall of Reach, stuff
And
like that.
Halo's had like some great cinematic
Honestly, I played
aspects to the
those.
games.
Yeah, but I'm talking about even like the live action movies they've done in the
Oh
past. Like
yeah,
I'd
yeah.
have to
Okay.
watch them again. But
I haven't seen any of
honestly,
them.
I think, and once again, it's been a while since I watched them. Maybe I am completely forgetting stuff, but I thought in many ways they looked better than this show. They felt more authentic.
Mm-hmm.
This show is just missing that, like that authenticity. It feels like they changed things. It's almost like these guys had a different story they wanted to write, and they were just like, well, you know what? We have this opportunity to use Halo as kind of our, coat of paint to put over the story we want to tell to kind of make it popular, if that makes sense.
It
Like,
feels kind of generic. I feel like in terms of
yeah, I
like
feel like some of the
sci-fi.
yeah, that's what this feels like. It's a sci-fi show. It might end up being an okay sci-fi show, but I don't know if it needed to be a Halo show. I feel like they're kind of shoehorning it in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I don't know, it just feels off to me. Maybe I haven't watched it enough, and maybe it will get there, but that's my initial just gut reaction. Like, Chief feels off to me. And I know this is supposed to, earlier in his career. He's not necessarily the Chief from the games that I'm used to, but I don't know. He feels a little less assured of himself, especially towards the end. I know he has the whole thing where and I'm assuming we're spoiler territory at this point,
Oh
but
yeah, I
like
already
he's
said mild
affected.
spoiler. So
Oh, that's right. He's affected by some kind of artifact, which is causing him to act weird. Like, okay, that's all well and good, but even in the games when there have been like similar
in the games, wasn't
interactions,
it Cortana is the one that kind of brings some humanity to him? Not.
well, here's the I always thought maybe once again I'm not the biggest Halo guy. I'm gonna keep saying that, but I feel like Chief always had a little bit of character to him. Like even like in Infinite, there were moments that he had some humanity to him, but it was subtle, and almost like you almost felt like some tragedy in it, and like you could tell how tired he was. And granted, different Chief because he's further on his career in Infinite than he is now, but I feel like there were ways to portray that humanity different than how they did it in this game. Not this game. I'm sorry, this show. I'm having a hard. Okay, so here's the other issue I'm having with Chief. I don't necessarily have an inherent problem with having them reveal his face at a certain point.
I do.
But well, okay, hold on. Let me get to there because I said inherently. I'm not saying I love it, but here's my issue, especially with the way they've handled it thus far. I already felt jarring when they showed Chief for the first time. Like, he looks good. Like, I think the Chief, armor looks pretty solid.
It looks like really good cosplay.
As soon as the actor started talking, I felt weird.
When he started talking, I was wondering who was talking, because I'm like, that's not Chief. Like, which?
That's what I thought too. And I get the rationale for why they didn't get what's his voice actor's name?
Steve Downs.
Yeah, Steve Downs. I get why they didn't do it.
I think they said Steve's getting older, so he's starting to.
Oh, if that's their excuse, I think that's crappy, because they just had him do Halo Infinite, so they could have got him for this.
I think it probably was more that the show didn't want to put the money out to get Steve.
I don't think it's that. They didn't want him, because here's the thing: they want to be able to show this actor's face, and they're going to have to use his voice. Mm-hmm. I know that's why they did it. If they were never going to show his face, I think Steve Downs probably would have been where they would have went with it.
He just looked like some generic white dude. I was like, oh, okay, who's this actor?
Hold on. Before we get to the face reveal, because man, I got a lot to say about that. But
I'm a white guy. I can say generic white looking white dude.
It's nothing about that, but so here's my thing. So he looks good. He looks like Chief, but immediately he doesn't sound like Chief, which that's fair. But then he's not really even acting like Chief. And granted, there's some story reasons why, but there's a lot of things happening around him that
he's a total a-hole. He was going to leave that Quan girl with our dead father at her feet.
Honestly, though, I think Chief would probably have done. Here's the thing: Chief is always focused on a goal. Like, he's focused on getting the mission done. Like, even the games, like, when was Chief rescuing civilians? That was never his priority. So I think that didn't throw me off.
Fair enough.
But either way, there was things that he would do and say in his behavior that felt initially contradictory to how I saw Master Chief. And I'm not saying I couldn't adjust to that. Like, given some time to kind of adjust that behavior to what I'm seeing on the screen, I probably could have come around. But as soon as they revealed his face, that was gone. Because I was already having a hard enough time adapting that behavior to looking at Chief. And now I'm not even looking at what I look at as Chief anymore. I'm seeing just this random white guy. So they got a new face, they got a new voice, they got a new behavior. That's not Chief anymore, at least not to me. And I'm going to have a real hard time watching this show and reconciling this now. Like, I think there could have been an opportunity if all I had to do was focus on adapting the voice and the behavior to the persona I'm seeing on the screen. But I'm going to have a real hard time doing that now since they've gone this full face reveal.
I have a problem with them doing it in the first episode. Like, if you're going to...
yeah.
If you're going to do it, at least do it at the end of the first season. At the end of the first season, that way, like, we can feel like we've been on a certain journey, some amount of journey with this character. He's kind of earned it to an extent. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I'd like to feel some sort of record with this person. Emotional ties.
It's immediately kind of lost the, legendary mythical factor of Chief too. As soon as you take that helmet off, especially this early on, before he's really done a whole lot in the show, like, he showed up, you saw him, kill some aliens for the first 15 minutes, and that was it. And now you've brought him down to human level already. Like, I think that could have been a much better reveal later, like after they've given him time to kind of be built up and broken down a little bit, and then have this face reveal to kind of relate him. That maybe could have worked, but it definitely wasn't necessary now for this unknown character. Like, that seemed like a crappy reason to do it. And that's also not something I feel like Chief would do. Like, I'm going back to Halo Infinite because it's the most recent thing in my mind, but think about how he interacted with, the pilot character in that game, who was, another scared just dude. And if he wanted to, calm down this guy, a good way to do that probably would have been to, take off his helmet and be like, hey, I'm a guy just like you. He didn't do that in the game because he didn't need to do that. He's like, I don't care if you don't agree with me or if you feel good about this. I'm Master Chief and I got stuff to do. Like, I don't feel like he should have behaved like that for this random girl. Like, I don't know. I feel like just that is such an odd behavioral choice for him, for one. And honestly, I don't think the face reveal is just necessary, period, at any point. Maybe towards the end, but I'm going to go back to the Mandalorian as an example, which is, I'm sure, a common comparison now. Did you ever get around to watching that, by the way?
Nope, never watched it.
Like, I mean, it's a little different because the Mandalorian, when he first came out, was a blank slate, so you didn't have to, associate anything to the character. But I think having him in that helmet the whole time really helped kind of emphasize the behavior of what that character was and his personality, without having to tie it to, how he looked or any of that. I don't know, and I feel like we lost that opportunity with this iteration of Master Chief. Like as I said, I think I probably could have eventually gotten behind the direction the character was going and some of the things he was doing
I kind of
if I could have just tied it to the entity of Master
I
Chief.
kind of wish they would have just done what they did with I can't remember which Halo it was. Whichever one, like at the end of the Halos when you beat the game on heroic or whatever, legendary.
Yeah.
There's a scene where like he takes off his helmet, but it's like the
You get a
backside.
glimpse.
Or wasn't it the backside of his helmet?
It starts the back and they show like a really close zoom in of like his eye or something.
I wish like when he did that on the Pelican in the show, they would have shown it from the backside of his head. That way you don't see the front. Like maybe they could have done anything to prevent that from happening. And
they've cheapened it a lot because no matter how you look at it, Chief is throughout the games and throughout the lore, he's this kind of like legendary mythical thing, the demon as they've kind of referred to him throughout the show. And I understand wanting to humanize him because I mean I guess they feel like in this show they have to be able to show that he's a human. But I guess my point is in The Mandalorian he felt extremely relatable and human early on, never took off that helmet. And maybe that's, a trait of the actor or the director kind of pulling that performance out of him. But I don't even feel like we got a chance for that.
I feel like you're really right, though, that, like, keeping that helmet on feels like it elevates his mystical name. Like, keeping the helmet on makes him feel like he's not human, even though he is a human. Like, it feels like it definitely adds to like the mystique. It adds to like I don't know. It makes him feel like he's RoboCop or something, like something more than what he is. You know what I mean? Even though he's incredible.
And there's a point where then you can break down that, archetype. Like you build him up and then like throughout, their adventure, you see him falter, you see him do whatever, question his actions, whatever it may be. You show the human elements that way, the chips in his armor, or chinks in his armor, whatever you call it. And then at a certain point, reveal his face. When it really matters, they've already kind of humanized him. And then it doesn't feel like they're playing it just for, the sake of showing his face. It feels like that was an earned moment. They didn't earn this, and I feel like it's already put like a poor taste in my mouth just looking at this actor because it feels so wrong and unearned now. And I think that's very unfair because this actor might do a great job, and I don't think he's even done a bad job yet. But I feel like because of the way they've set him up, it's put a lot of weight on him now. And I don't know. I think it's going to make it really hard for him to carry that throughout this whole show.
And not only was I mad that they showed his face either, but like that entire scene, he's just no helmet on. There's like 5 to 10 minutes of a scene where he's helmetless, and I'm like, bro, at least put that freaking helmet back on. Like that entire scene, he's just like no helmet, and I'm like,
yeah. So now I'm worried how often they're going to do that, and that's even going to pull more away from the mystique of Chief. And I'm sure somebody out there is disagreeing with me, like they like the fact they've humanized him that much, but I don't know. I feel like it's gone just the wrong direction. It doesn't feel like I don't feel like this is the Chief that is going to grow up into or grow into the Chief that I know from
the games. Just did so much with his character and building his character without him ever taking off the helmet.
It's not needed. I know that's what the director's saying, but I think The Mandalorian is proof that was not necessary. And not every show can be The Mandalorian, which once again you should watch. It's pretty solid. But I think that's just more of them wanting to take an easy way out. It's easier to direct and act when you don't have a helmet on. Like, you can show facial expressions and emotions, but I think it's more powerful when that's all subtly done through the voice acting. And we're going to miss that, I think, a little bit in this, where they're going with it.
And you can...
I don't... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, everyone dislikes the game, but, like, the game did some good things. Like, Halo 4... those were some of the best parts of that game, was kind of seeing kind of seeing Master Chief deal with all of the things with Cortana. Like there's some great scenes with him wearing a helmet and just like being emotional and talking about being a machine. And she told me, I just mean like that game was able to get across his emotion. It was able to get across what he was going through without him ever taking his freaking helmet off.
I feel like they took an easy way out, showing the face too early, and that just kind of shows their hand, I think, with how they're going to approach this whole show. Like, they have their own thing they want to do here, and I don't think it's appease the Halo fans. Like, this does not feel like Halo to me.
It's
got
very
a Halo coat of paint.
Oh, good, sir.
No, I'm just reiterating everything I've said so far.
It's very on brand for Paramount Plus, man. If you talk to, like, I pay attention to Red Letter Media, they're huge Star Trek people, and I've watched all of their videos of them reviewing Picard and Star Trek Discovery, and it's the same way, man. It's them every season or every episode they talk about it. They're constantly complaining about, like, you've taken this thing that we love, but, like, you've taken none of the things. Like, Picard doesn't act like TNG. Nobody in there acts like their TNG counterparts, and
yeah,
it's not even just that, but, like, they don't even carry over themes. They don't carry over, like, what Star Trek was even about,
Yeah, I mean, granted, it's real early to say if that's what they're going to end up doing with this show, but I mean, that quote by the director who said, they didn't refer to the games at all, or he didn't, reference or play the games, like, he left that out of his, like, research completely. Like, yes, there's a lot of lore in Halo that you can pull from, but Halo is the games. Like, that's where it originated from. Like, leaving that out is leaving out such a core part of what makes Halo Halo. Like, and I'm sorry, throwing in some sound effects and looking through the visor is not enough to make it Halo. That makes it actually feel cheaper to me than when they don't follow through with actual theming and, character arcs and stuff from the actual game. So, and once again, that is their core audience. I don't get why they're going this so adverse direction when you got to think the majority of people watching the show are Halo fans that want to see Halo, like the way they probably know it. I mean, maybe I'm really off here, and I'm sure there's a grouping out there that's like, no, we want to see something different. We're cool with that, but and it can be a little different. I'm not saying it can't be it has to be 100% the same, but it has to feel like Halo. And this to me doesn't feel like Halo.
I just can't wait till you punch your TV after saying Cortana not be blue.
Oh man, that drives me crazy. It's like, okay, why change it? That's my thing. Like,
still think she has a blue hue, but she isn't.
It wasn't much.
Yeah.
She looked like a white chick. I'm just saying. We're talking about
Dude,
white guy.
I'm not kidding. If Cortana ends up not being digital, I'm gonna stop watching Cortana. Like, because
she's digital.
They showed that Halsey in that room next to her laboratory had what looked like a form of her in a little machine. And that was a human looking.
Oh yeah.
If
I don't know.
If she's not the digital form, man. Well, no, that means what they might. Oh gosh, I already see what they're gonna do. So what they're gonna do is
have that chick into like a computer or something.
Yes, and then that won't last long though. That may last a season or two, and at some point she'll come out of there, and Chief will be with his physical form of Cortana.
Oh man, I don't need this fan fiction. Don't do it, Chaz.
But yeah,
I don't know. But you can just I don't know. I understand some things are hard to adapt to TV, but I feel like there are some things that should adapt. Like, okay, so let's go to the Sonic the Hedgehog movie just for a minute. Like, they tried to modernize. Well, no, I'm not talking about the movie itself. You know the franchise, the whole controversy that came up with the horrible monster they created to make it realistic and fit what they want to do, and then they realized, no, that's not what anybody wants, and just being a little more authentic to the source material ended up working great. Like, why can't you just make Cortana blue? She'll look more authentic. I don't think it's gonna tee anybody off, and I don't see how it couldn't work just to give her a blue hue if she's gonna actually be computer generated like she should be. You're right. If they go the human route, then oh man, we got a whole another concern. But I don't know. I'm nervous about the direction of this show, and that's fine. I mean, just to be honest, this may just not be the show for me, and I'm okay with that. I don't need this to be the perfect Halo show I care about. Honestly, I'll go back and watch the movies I enjoyed and play the games, but I don't really care for where this is going right now.
Yeah. Oh shoot, I had something on the brain. What did I have on the brain? I guess we'll start wrapping it up. But yeah, last few things. What did you think about? I actually kind of liked High Charity, which is if you know from Halo, High Charity is the place where the Covenant it's like their home base or home. I don't think planet, but home base. I actually really liked the way the prophets looked and all that, because I think you see Mercy. That was really cool. But my big problem again, who's this random white chick? Why is she? Why is she a deal?
And that feels very antithetical to the lore. Like they hate the humans.
Yeah, the prophets are like super. They're like racist. They're like I don't want to. What's the religious word? They're like I can't think of a religious term, because that's what it very much is in the games. Like they're like shoot, I
know what you're talking about.
I can't think of a word that it's their is it zealots? They're like
zealots means they're overly passionate about. So I don't know if that's where you're going with this, but I know what you're saying.
I just mean that's the whole theme of like the Covenant, though, is that it's all like higher plane, higher, whatever their form of that is, and they just go the wrong way. And they would not have a human in their midst. Like, and that's what I'm saying. Like, okay, so some changes are fine. This is a change though that goes so against, what the lore is about that it makes me very uncomfortable. Like, I'm not saying there isn't an interesting story or narrative there, but it's like, I don't know, like, what do you enjoy about Halo? Is the lore important to you? Do you just like it for, some big guys in suits shooting people? Like, I feel like a lot of people enjoy Halo because of the world they built, and part of the world is the lore that comes along with it. I'm not saying you can't adapt and shift some things. Like, okay, so Keyes is now she's a medical scientist now instead of whatever position she had before. All right, that's a little weird, but, I can get behind a small change like that. But something that's like core adjusting to like the Covenant belief system, like that's like, we're going a little too far there. Shit,
so
the Covenant even are like they're incredibly racist. Like I said, they're religious zealotry in a way, and also they're like they slave. They have slaves. That's what the grunts
and all that.
Yeah, they're like totally. I don't think this series is going to touch on any of that stuff. That stuff seems like something that the show runners are going to drastically avoid. They're not going to talk about any of those aspects.
I think that's what's a little disappointing. It was not necessarily that particular aspect, but there's enough good lore that has not been touched on in Halo that they could have built something cool around. And I don't know if they're going to even bother. It seems, once again, like they've got some story already in their mind, and they're just going to make it fit Halo. And, I mean, I kind of agree, like, seeing the UNSC as the bad guys a little bit. That's interesting. I think that is somewhat lore accurate. Like,
I kind of like that.
Yeah, and once again, I think that fits the lore, too. Like, maybe it's going in a certain direction that's a little more extreme or less extreme than the lore, how it's built up. But I think that fits. That can work. But there's other areas I think they're just going off in their own little thing. And I don't know. I'm just talking in circles now. I'm sorry.
No.
So...
Well, that basically is all my thoughts. I mean, I really enjoyed the first episode, and I kind of see where things are going to go. That's it. That's all we're saying. We kind of get what they're going with it, and I'm not. I just know there's going to come a point in the next few episodes where they're going to do something that I'm just like, really, and then I'll get turned off.
I feel like for me, they've already started doing that. Yeah. Like, I'm very middling on this already, leaning negative. I mean, could it turn around? Sure, I guess, but I don't know. They've done so many little things in this one episode to throw up red flags and maybe just like, I don't like that direction, or I don't like this perspective, that it's just not for me, and that's okay.
Maybe my favorite part from the first episode was the Mass Effect reference.
Like, I heard that when it happened. Like, I know, like, right after that, I saw like articles talking about it, and I went back and rolled back. They just say Commander Shepard, which is weird. Why?
That's
why
the thing.
bother?
That's the thing I don't understand is if
I know there's supposed to be a Mass Effect TV show. I don't know if it's through Paramount +2. I know they're talking about that, so maybe it's trying to, I don't know, drum up some
rumors or something.
I guess I don't know, but that cameo or Easter egg doesn't do anything for me because it's a completely different franchise.
Well, the thing I don't get is, like, this show I don't think is tailoring itself towards the gamer fan base of Halo. So if gamers aren't attracted to this show, like, why would you have gamer references?
Well, to be fair, I mean, there's plenty of, maybe the director just, he's a fan of Mass Effect. He thought it'd be funny.
Why? He hasn't played Halo.
I'm reaching a little bit. I'm just saying there are other reasons to have little cameo Easter egg things like that than just to appease your audience. But you'd think that would play a part in it. Mm-hmm. It just seems like an odd, like if you're going to add an Easter egg, let it be a Halo Easter egg. Yeah. Something that would make sense in this world. Like, what you're trying to tell me that canonically now the UNSC is in the same world that Shepard is in? Well, that just makes everything
have someone say the word arbiter or something. You know what I mean? Some random, not random. Arbiter is actually a big character in the games.
But there's plenty of things they could have mentioned that I think would have made all the Halo freaks go, "Ooh, they said that thing." But saying a Mass Effect reference in a Halo show is just like, well, does that mean anything? Is that just this guy's trying to feel cool and gamery? Like,
have someone say the word flood or something. Something where like people who know Halo are like, ooh, did he say flood? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and maybe that's too early canonically, but I don't know if they care about canon in this case. No. So I don't know. I don't know. I heard the reference. I didn't really care for it, or it felt more jarring to me, honestly. Mm-hmm. Like when I heard that, I stopped. I'm like, why did they say that?
They said Commander, if you guys don't know, basically in the background of a scene between Quan and Keyes, where they're, I don't know, I don't even remember what they were doing. They were kind of bartering with getting Quan to say something to the media about the attack that just happened. But basically in the background you hear someone say, Commander Shepard to the Skyllian response sector, which it's clearly a Mass Effect reference. I mean, the Skyllian Verge, if you've played the Mass Effects, was always a location you go to a lot in those games. I mean, that's quite a blatant reference, I would think.
Yeah. Yeah, it just felt very out of place. Did not add. It kind of, I don't know, almost felt more insulting.
Yeah.
I don't know, just because everything else they were just like changing and tweaking. And then they throw in some weird off-the-cuff Mass Effect reference. It's just like, these guys felt I don't know. The ones in charge of this show, the showrunners, feel kind of out of touch with what this show I think is going to appeal to as far as, the gaming crowd. And maybe that's not who they're trying to appease. I mean, maybe a lot of gamers aren't running up and signing for Paramount Plus, so they're trying to appease those who are already on this platform. But maybe the Star Trek fans out there, I don't know.
Go. I don't know.
I'm surprised, Matt, that Microsoft and 343 are signing off on this, to be honest. Like, maybe they don't care enough.
They probably just got a fat paycheck from Paramount. They were just like, can we borrow your IP for a bit?
It's got to be, which makes me sad, especially because, like, you showed up that article where the 343 guys were like, yeah, they had to show the face so it would have some meaning or whatever it was.
And because they wanted to feel earned or something.
Yeah,
in the first episode.
If that's their take on this, I have even less faith in 343 working on Halo. Yeah. Which
I don't think Halo probably had much to do with this. I feel like Paramount.
343.
What'd I say? Halo?
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like 343 probably. I mean, they probably suggested things, but to me this feels like someone who was just kind of gave their IP to somebody and said, yeah, whatever, do what you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which is such a shame because I feel like Microsoft has, at least at surface level, been trying to curate things a little better and focus on producing things that are going to have good quality to them, like with their game studios, letting them do their thing. Granted, we saw how that worked with the initiative, so maybe I shouldn't talk. But I don't know. It just seems to me this show just feels off right off the bat. So I feel like if they had anybody on their teams, Microsoft or 343, looking at this and being like, that doesn't seem right, that should have been a red flag, and they should have taken some stances. But maybe that's not the contract that was in place here, and I'm sure it was more handoff than I'm hoping it was.